What are the best perks for you to be running here in Season 5 now that we've got 2 brand new ones to choose from? I'll answer that question and walk you through the details of the new perks to help you decide what perk combination will work best for your playstyle. Hey there folks, my name is Mr. Mooman11. Good to see you again. For the longest time, when I've gotten to make a new class for Verdansk or Rebirth Island, it's really only ever been a question of what primary and secondary weapons and attachments I'll be changing up. My perk preferences, on the other hand, haven't really changed throughout Warzone's year-and-a-half life cycle. Sure, maybe on one class I'll have Ghost and on another one I'll take Overkill, but in reality I usually only ever pick from a pool of 2 or 3 perks per color category, and if you're like 90% of the player base, you feel the same way too. But let's see if these 2 new perks are good enough to change up what everyone runs on their classes. First up, we've got the new red perk 2 called Tempered. In a nutshell, this will replace your 3 armor plate slots with a very cool, very sleek and streamlined 2 armor plate slots that absorb the same total amount of damage as your previous 3 armor plates did. Pretty big deal, I know. But there is actually significance to this seemingly small change. What it essentially does is increase the individual plate armor health pool from 50 hit points to 75 hit points. For those of you that don't know, when you're at full armor and full health, you can effectively take 250 points of damage before getting downed, with 100 of those HP points coming from your normal white health bar that auto-regenerates, and the other 150 coming from the 3 armor plates each worth 50 hit points individually. The advantages of using this perk mean ultimately that your reserve pool of armor you find off the ground or get when you pick up an armor satchel increases, since you don't need as many armor plates to get back to full as someone without this perk does. For example, the value of an armor satchel without this perk is going to be 400 extra hit points of damage, which is 50 HP times 8 armor plates. With this new Tempered perk on, that increases from 400 extra armor damage to a total of 600 points of armor protection, or 75 HP times 8 plates. That means with Tempered on, you can fully armor up from 0 4 separate times, whereas you can only fully armor up twice and once with 2/3 the armor on the 3rd try without Tempered. But besides the total armor pool increase, running this new perk has 2 additional benefits. The first is that when you equip it, say when you're getting your loadout, your armor bar will be instantly filled. A lot of times this isn't going to be the most game-changing benefit since it's usually advisable to get your loadout in a safe spot, but there are scenarios where this can play a part. For one off the top of my head, if you're landing in on Verdansk where there is no spawn protection like there is on Rebirth Island and some dude beams you from far away within an inch of your life, getting a class with Tempered will be beneficial because you'll instantly gain those 150 armor plate hit points when you grab your loadie. Most times though, this part of the perk will go unnoticed, since usually when you can afford a loadout you can also afford extra plates, but regardless, it's a nice extra to be aware about. The second extra benefit is that there's no actual change in the animation speed to plate up, meaning in a head-to-head race, someone plating up with Tempered on will finish faster than their opponent not running Tempered since they only have to fill up 2 plates instead of 3. Now again, this isn't the biggest change ever since there are more animations that take place when refilling your armor than just physically putting in the plates. There's extra downtime where you can't engage someone because when you hit that armor refill button, you've got to first pull down your weapon, then insert the plates, then pull your weapon back up before you can actually do anything. The Tempered perk only affects that middle part by having to put in 1 less plate animation. It does nothing to change the weapon down and up animation time. Overall though, running this perk will save you a little over 25% of your full armor up animation, which equates to about 1.5 seconds. For a lot of really close 1v1 gunfights, this actually can make a pretty significant impact on the outcome. That extra 1.5 seconds can be used to reload your weapon or push out to your enemy while they're just finishing plating up. I think the biggest determining factor for whether or not you should be trading out Ghost or Overkill or Restock for this new perk is your playstyle. For those more aggressive players who are solely going for kills, Tempered is definitely an option since it means less time on the go spent armoring up. I'm not sure though for those hyper-aggressive people running Restock that this will be worth switching to. And for people that are more centered around using ARs at a distance, this is definitely not the perk for you. You wouldn't get nearly the same benefit as someone pushing right up in some squad's face taking damage since you're a lot less likely to lose armor frequently when you're playing back. For those types of players, the other new perk, Combat Scout, may be more your style. This perk acts almost as a mobile snapshot grenade, but instead of one highlight, every bullet you fire turns your shots into wall hacks. Essentially, if you hit a person once firing through, let's say the tents down in parade grounds, you get a giant bright outline of their character model to track through the super squishy surface. Every time you deal damage to them, you get an outline that lasts for just over 0.5 seconds, and each new point of damage you deal refreshes that cooldown timer, meaning you can shoot someone through a wall and have them be highlighted the whole time until you finish them. In addition to the 600 millisecond highlight, you'll also get a live mark above them that's a little bit bigger and brighter than the usual live ping, and that lasts for 3.5 seconds. One difference between the highlight and the ping is that the ping's timer doesn't refresh every time you damage an enemy in a fight like the highlight does. So let's say you hit a guy once through some object. He'll light up like a Christmas tree for a 0.5 second and have that live ping over him for the next 3.5 seconds. If you keep getting hit markers on him for the next 2 seconds, he'll stay highlighted the whole time until you stop dealing damage, and the highlight will disappear 600 milliseconds later. He'll still have the red live ping above his head though, since it hasn't been a full 3.5 seconds. If 1 second later you start to damage him again, he'll be highlighted again, but the red live ping above him will fade out regardless of if you're still hitting him, because that 3.5 second timer doesn't reset on each point of damage. You'd have to hit him again right after the red ping disappears at just over 3.5 seconds from the initial point of damage to be able to get another live ping on him, which will then start a new timer over for another 3.5 seconds. In addition to the ping and highlight timers, I went in and tested the different tacticals and lethals, and based off that I can say lethals will activate Combat Scout, but tacticals will not. I think they probably did this so that the snapshot grenades don't become totally useless, but as it stands right now, snapshots are the only tactical that'll do any highlighting, but it's not because of the perk, it's because that's like all the snapshot grenade does. One thing to note though while I was testing stuns and flashbangs is that while you won't be able to highlight someone when you stun or flash them, if you are flashed, you can start spraying, and if you hit someone, you'll have a giant white screen with a beautifully clear highlighted enemy outline on it that you can track through the flashbang. So I can definitively say Combat Scout can sorta kinda counter flashbangs if you get lucky and the person you're facing is totally incompetent. Not that often that you run into someone with flashes though, so good luck ever getting that to happen organically. Now let's get into the extra benefits and some strategies you can employ when using Combat Recon. The extra benefits include you not having to manually tag someone when you go to shoot them, and your team being able to spot the enemies you automatically tag because of the giant live ping indicator above them. Unlike Tempered, where it really only helps you, unless you make the argument that you can share more plates with teammates, Combat Scout actually gives material benefits to not only you, but your team as well every time you fire at someone. In my personal opinion, I think Combat Scout is a much more viable perk to replace the meta than Tempered is, and that team information sharing is one of the reasons why. I also think it may even have the potential to rein in a new playstyle, where people run restock with snapshot grenades in Combat Scout with some primary with FMJ on it. One strategy you can implement if you know someone is camping in a house is to toss a snapshot in their general vicinity, wait for that snapshot's highlight, and then blast them through the wall to keep that solid highlight tracking them everywhere they go. I'm almost getting nightmare flashbacks to that awful few weeks in Modern Warfare history when the AS Val had 0 penetration penalties and everyone was snapshotting kids and getting kills through a mile of solid concrete. I don't think it's going to be that bad this time around, but it'll be exciting to say the least to watch what kind of plays you can make with this new perk. There were some changes to a couple of other perks I'll go over real quick before I give my recommendation on what the best perks are as of now here at the start of Season 5. First off, High Alert was given an added benefit in addition to the normal yellow directional highlight you'll get when someone aims at you. It's supposed to also now counter dead silence. Classic Ravensoft though. At the time of uploading this video, that was just a straight up lie, and the change hasn't actually gone into effect yet, despite the description saying so. When this does ultimately work as intended, I don't know that the added benefit will be enough to get more people using it. There are some people that just love that perk, so I imagine that'll only make them happier to keep using it, but the other perks in that blue category are still just objectively better. The second change that was made to an existing perk was to Cold-Blooded. I've already seen more people using this perk for the sole reason that it now counters the new Combat Recon perk. Since Combat Recon is new and a lot of people are using it right now, I don't think it's that bad of an idea to pop Cold-Blooded on a class or two, especially for our Verdansk players where most people only ever run EOD or Double Time for their perk 1 slot. But with those two changes covered, let's go over my recommendation for what perks you should be using for your preferred game mode and playstyle. I'll start with our Resurgence friends, since that's what I've got the most experience with. If you're making classes for Rebirth Island, I think the best perks to run in your blue perk 1 spot are Quick Fix, EOD, and now also Cold-Blooded. Double Time isn't necessary because of the map size, Kill Chain just isn't worth running, and Scavenger is literally the most useless thing ever in Warzone, no matter what mode you're playing. I personally still plan on running primarily Quick Fix on all my Resurgence classes just because I like to be aggressive and it's perfect for keeping up your health when you're going against multiple enemies. EOD is something that's just a nice peace of mind thing to have on, so it's still perfectly viable. Cold-Blooded I think may be adopted by more of the passive players who like to hold down buildings and not be as aggressive since they can easily duck behind cover and not get spotted by the new perk. Moving on to perk 2, I think Ghost and Overkill are still the best two to choose from. I think once the novelty of being a new perk wears off, Tempered will become more of a niche perk that still some people will use, but not at the rate that players pick Ghost or Overkill. It just doesn't have the same benefits as the other two. Lastly, for perk 3, I think Combat Scout will actually be a new meta perk that people opt to use as much as Amped or Tracker. I would say if you're running an SMG and getting up close and personal to people, Tracker would still be the way to go, but Combat Scout has got some great team synergies that I think give it real potential. Same thing goes for Verdansk players. Combat Scout may even be more viable on that larger map since you have greater odds of pushing out the ranges of your gunfights. Having a bright highlighted target to shoot at will make Combat Scout a valuable perk to run on that map regardless of playstyle. For perk 1, Double Time also makes much more of an impact on Verdansk than on Rebirth Island, so that can definitely remain in the pool of choices. For perk 2, I can see making at least one class that has Tempered on it for those respawning in late in the game to pick. Being able to grab your loadout and immediately go to full armor can definitely make an impact, but you've still got to consider the disadvantage of not running Ghost as you enter the final circle. I want to know though what you all think of the new perks that were added, so leave me a comment down below if you plan on switching out any old perks for the new shiny ones. If you learned something new or enjoyed the video, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to the Moo Crew for more in-depth Warzone analysis. I also live stream over on Twitch at twitch.tv/MrMooMan11, and I'd love to see you there. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.